On this episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast, we have the Miracle League of Johnston County's director, Monty McLamb. He is going to tell us a little bit about how the Miracle League was created originally outside of Atlanta in the early 1990s, how he got started making a Miracle League franchise right here in Johnston County around 2008, 2009, about the partnership to build a miracle plan that built them a field, a special field for disabled children to play baseball at Smithfield, along with a special park for children with disabilities. It's also at Smithfield, right in part of the Smithfield Community Park, next to the Smithfield Recreation and Aquatic Center and Triple S High School, and a little bit about why he loves Johnston County so much and how great Johnston County has been for him, his family, and children with disability in the Miracle League. So listen in. I think you will find it fascinating, and you will also learn how you can get involved and help these children.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we have the director and founder of the Johnston County Miracle League, Monty McLamb, here to talk about the Miracle League, who they serve, what it is, how you can get involved, and a little bit about what he does in his real life as doing building supplies and logistics and stuff like that. It's a fascinating guy. I think you're really going to enjoy it. He's got a lot of energy and a lot of passion for disabled children that is great for this community, and he's done a lot of great things. But before we get to that, I want to ask you to like, follow, and subscribe to the Best of Johnston County podcast, wherever you're seeing it, on LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, or any of the other social media channels of the Best of Johnston County podcast. The Best of Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday and has been for over a year now. So go back and listen to some of our other great guests like Butch Lauder, Johnston County Commissioner Chairman, Chris Johnston, Johnston County Economic Development Chairman, local dentist Tim Sims, Miss Teen America Hanley House. We've had a lot of great guests. A little bit of everybody have been on here talking about why they love Johnston County. If you live in Johnston County or you love Johnston County as much as we do, this is the podcast for you. So keep listening and sharing our content so more people become aware of it. Welcome, Monty.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, no problem. I know we've been trying to set this up for about a year now. Tell the people who you are and what you do.
Okay, that should be simple enough. My name is Monty McLamb, and I am, as you introduced, the founder of the Miracle League of Johnston County. It's one of those things that just came about. You know, if you ever sat down and thought, I got to do something, and you just start rolling through things. That doesn't work. Well, there's a lot of stories we can get into, but yeah, it ended up being the Miracle League. I was a baseball coach forever. And so as my kids got older, this kind of just morphed into what it is. It's a great organization.
Oh man, it is. It serves a lot of disabled kids, allows them to play a real baseball game on a real baseball field.
With real uniforms, with real coaches.
Right. Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. You're born and raised in Johnston County. Talk about where you grew up, where you went to school.
All my life, Benson is the only place I've ever known. I did pull some time in Raleigh for about 5 or 6 years. I call pull some time because when you grow up in Johnston County, Raleigh is really not where you want to be. I went to NC State, and so, yeah, living right downtown Raleigh. But funny story, we went back to Hillsborough Street and all just a couple of years ago, riding to the state fair. And my wife and I were just looking around like, oh my gosh. I was back there in the late 80s. And so we were riding around looking at downtown Raleigh. And we're like, okay, this isn't how we remember.
No,
it's not. I'm glad to be in Johnston County. I will forever be in Johnston County.
No, it is. It's different. And I still go to Hillsborough Street to get my hair cut. I went to NC State in the mid-90s, and I still go to get my hair cut. So every month I drive down Hillsborough Street, and every month a business closes and a different business opens.
In the same building.
Yeah. Right, in the same building. And, of course, they tore down the bowling alley and put in a Target. And Brothers and the Two Guys Pizza or Brothers is gone and the pizza's
Mitch's
gone.
Tavern.
Mitch's Tavern is still there, remodeled and reopened.
Right.
So anyway, they were glad to have you there. Players Retreat is still there. My dad worked at Players Retreat back in the 60s when he was in college. So
be careful.
Yeah, right. No, it is. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so I think you ended up getting into the building supply business, I think, right?
Yeah, that's all I've ever known is building materials, construction, that side, real estate, everything. That's really all I've ever known. My dad worked in it his life. His dad was a carpenter. My dad was in building supply sales, and him and a group of investors started a business back in 1982. That happened to be my freshman year in high school. So, everybody needs a job. So that was my summer job. So when I was 14 years old, and that summer job, left to go to NC State, was there, worked with a contractor in Raleigh for a year, and a position came open in sales in this company or in my dad's company. And, one thing led to another, and there I was, and I've been there ever since. That's kind of all I know.
Right. Well, what's the name of the company?
It was Interstate Distributors. Just recently, my dad and the other owners retired. And at that time, they sold out to a company called Building Material Distributors out of Sacramento, California. Great company. I was scared to death. I was like, oh my gosh, here comes a big company is going to buy us out and they're going to put their thumb down. But no, it's an awesome company.
That's great.
Yep.
So who are your ideal clients? Who do you sell to?
We are a wholesale distributor. We sell to retail lumber yards, brick yards, masonry. I tell everybody it's the Lowe's type places.
Oh, okay. You sell to like Lowe's, Home Depot.
Well, our primary customer is your local hometown building supply place.
Like Hudson's Hardware and Clayton?
Hudson's Hardware. Old Town Supply in Clayton. A lot of, what are some of the... if it's a local building supply and hardware store, they're probably in our database somewhere. Yeah.
What about Ace? Those are smaller, more local than some of the bigger ones.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We've actually brokered a deal with all the Ace hardware stores just recently. So Ace has its own buying co-op, but we've gone in there and we've kind of partnered with Ace. So the Ace stores can buy from us as well, with the same deals that they're getting from their Ace buying co-op.
Well, that's great. I mean, and it's all about buying in bulk and what price they can get per capita. That's what they're about.
And what we like about it keeps it local. I mean,
correct. Well, and Ace has a local franchisee model.
Exactly.
And so their franchisees are in the community.
Reacting community. So it's a great deal.
Yeah, I know Ace itself is having a hard time, as a company, but I'm hoping that all the local guys around here, I know several of them are going to be fine and they're going to be able to work through the issues they're having.
Yeah, I tell you what, 2020 kind of put a kink in all of us.
Yeah, well, it did.
Yeah, and it affected businesses all up and down. So we were not immune to it. There's still a few little things we learned, but things that made us better and stronger, just like everybody in the community. Just about every business had some impact. But hey, we're back and better than ever.
Well, that's great. That's great. Under new ownership too.
New ownership. That's right.
So, all right. Well, let's move forward to talk more about the Miracle League. The concept of the Miracle League, I think, comes out of Atlanta in the late 90s. Is that right?
It is.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about how it came to be. I mean, now it's all over the country, but your understanding of its origins.
Right. Okay. It started the same way I started it here, but down a little town outside of Atlanta, there was a guy that was coaching his son's baseball team. And they noticed there was another kid that was at every game, but he was in a wheelchair sitting on the sidelines. And he decided, okay, those kids are here every day. They know the game. There's got to be a way we can include them. So he started our own little small league there outside of Atlanta, and that grew into the Miracle League. Now, Miracle Leagues are just like a franchise model. Each community has a director that starts it out. Now, the home office in Atlanta, they assist you. They give you the model that you follow, just like a franchise would. They give you everything to go by. They help you with your advertising and everything. They give you the plan for the field. So they do all of that. Now, each location is responsible for fundraising and actually construction and building all of that. So that's the way it works. So, and you mentioned now we're all over the country. We're actually all over the world. There are 4 or 5 different locations. They've got 2 in Mexico, 1 in Puerto Rico. So it's growing tremendously. I think right now they're over 350 fields.
I mean, that's tremendous. That's tremendous. And what does a field consist of? We have a field at Smithfield Community Park, right next to SRAC, right next to Triple S High School in Smithfield. It is unique. It is not like any other baseball field you've been to. It's got bases and stuff, but it's
Yeah.
got all kinds of stuff for special needs children. Tell us about the field itself.
It stands out. It sure does. And we were very fortunate. The town of Smithfield gave us a little tract of land there right at the entrance. So you can't miss us when you pull in to the community park there in Smithfield. And everybody is funny. They call me and they say, well, you know, there are a lot of fields out there. How do we know? I said, you'll know when you see it, which one it is. So the field itself is a synthetic surface. There's a couple of different ways they're built. There are 2 or 3 different surfaces you can choose from. Some are tiles that are laid down, but we chose to go with what they call on a troweled rubber surface. So basically it's concrete that's poured out. You level the field, the contractors, they slope it so the water runs off of it, and then they go back over the top of a surface that's 1/4 of an inch thick, and the guys get out there and trowel down a recycled rubber, basically little pellets. It's real fine, but they do it in colors just like a baseball field, so it looks like when you're standing out looking at it, it just looks like a really clean baseball field.
Right.
They go and mark the lines. The lines are a white rubber. The infield's a brown rubber for the dirt. The outfield's green rubber. And so it looks pretty good, and it looks good all the time, easy to clean. But the biggest thing is it's smooth. There are no rocks. So I remember when I was playing Little League, that was our biggest fear when you're young, is a ball hitting a rock. And you don't know which way it's going.
Right.
I caught one right there one time. So, but yeah, and these kids don't have to worry about that.
Right. And does it make sounds where the bases are and stuff? Like, does it have any electronics on it? Where I thought maybe it had like the bases made noises so they knew which way to go.
Yeah. Well, no, that's funny. You need to go to a game because kids, some know where to go, some don't. So that's what makes it unique. That's what makes it fun. But really, what gets the kids to the right place are the volunteers.
Okay.
Every kid has a volunteer, and when it's time to go, it's shockingly, but the kids know where to go. They know first base is where they're supposed to run.
Okay.
You don't have to spend a lot of time explaining the rules to baseball.
Okay.
So
I got you.
Fun. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, and the other thing is, because it's a synthetic surface and because it's smooth, it's very accessible for wheelchairs.
Very much.
So you have a lot of players who are in wheelchairs or that have mobility issues, whether they're on crutches or canes or stuff like that. So that makes it really nice too.
It does. And that's all thanks to the guy that started it outside of Atlanta. They tried 3 or 4 different iterations, and this is what they ended up with. And so that's now what they kind of push all the fields to. We actually started playing on a dirt field because we just wanted to get the kids out there and get started. So when you go from a dirt field to this field, it's night and day.
Right. So it starts in Johnston County in like 2008, 2009? Is that when you started this? 2010?
The idea kind of started percolating about 2008. We actually incorporated in 2009 and started playing in 2010.
And where did you get the idea from?
So, like I said, I coached my kids from the time they were old enough to swing a bat right on up to, so we'll say 5 years old, right on up to out of middle school. They got into high school, and my kids decided, Dad, I'm not going to play baseball. I want to play football. So here goes a baseball dad, and his kid goes from baseball to football. Well, I'm not a football coach, so I couldn't continue then. Plus, they're in high school, and high school coaches, they want the parents to kind of, we're coaches now. Y'all step to the side. So, so I took some time off. I took a year off. I realized, okay, I enjoyed coaching. I'm missing something. And so there were several parents. We played in Four Oaks. So the Four Oaks Civitan Club, they ran all the sports there at the time. We had a couple of parents say, hey, Monty, can you come back and can coach our kids? So I said, okay, I'm going to go back for a year and go and enjoy it. Had a ball, had a blast playing with the kids, having fun. But what changed for me was, I hate to mention the bad stuff, but parents have just changed when it comes to baseball. I mean, every kid's got a scholarship on the line at 6 years old. They know where he's headed. And, they get a little upset with some calls sometimes, and some umpires, don't always get the call right. And I'm like, just let's take it in. Let's play fun. Let's be fun about it. And lo and behold, I was watching, I can't remember what I was watching, but it was a sports show. And they did a little 5-minute deal on the Miracle League. And I thought, that's pretty cool. And so I said, well, this may be the thing. So I called up Diane, who's kind of like the director of the Miracle League now in Atlanta, and I talked to her for a little bit. And so she looked up Johnston County. She said, wow. She said, Johnston County she said, just outside of Raleigh, aren't you? I said, we sure are. She said, this looks like an absolutely amazing spot for a Miracle League field. Let's talk. And so we sat
Oh,
there,
man.
we met.
Okay.
I went down to Atlanta, I met her, I showed her, they looked at all of the demographics and said, hey, this is the perfect spot. We want you on board. So they sent me all the information. I started reading up. I talked to a couple of folks around Johnston County. They said, let's do it. And so that's when it was born.
Man, okay. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, from an idea and a phone call to what it is now. So, but you needed a field, and I know that the Rotary Club in Smithfield and several other groups got together and they did the sort of the fundraising campaign Partnership to Build a Miracle.
That's right.
I know Chris Key, who was on this podcast a few months ago, we talked about that program because he was very active in the Rotary Club, and I heard him give the speech and play the video multiple times at chamber events and stuff I was at. I know Alan Wellens was extremely involved in getting this done, the attorney, former state senator out of Smithfield. So tell me a little bit about, did you go to them and say, I need a field? Did they come to you? How did this work?
That's the funniest story. I say funny. It's actually turned out to be great. In the beginning, here I am. The one thing Diane told me, she said, okay, this field's going to be about $350,000, $400,000. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. This is Johnston County. And then about 6 months into it, I thought, okay, this is pretty tough to raise that much money, by myself. So I was going around, I was talking to all the churches, the Rotary clubs, the Civitan clubs, any kind of group that was community oriented. And I'd give them the little spiel. I had a video I showed. It turned out great. So one day at the Rotary Club in Smithfield invited me to go show them, give them a talk. And so I did, and everybody liked it. Well, after that meeting, I met Chris Key. And Chris, they were trying to build the park. So that was their plan, build the park. We didn't know anything about each other. He didn't know we were doing the Miracle League. I didn't know they were doing the park.
Okay.
And so after that Rotary Club presentation, Chris comes up to me. He says, you know what, Monty, we got a problem. I said, what is that? He said, we're going after the same donors. We're trying to get money from the same people. He said, if they give to me, they're probably not going to give to you. If they give to you, they're probably not going to give to me. He said, why don't we put this together and make it one giant project? I said, okay, that's an idea there. So instead of, our budgets went from 300,000 to $1 million overnight. So
well, it did. And what you're talking about for the people not listening is there is a special needs park, which is made for children with special needs with special playground equipment in Smithfield, right? And that's what I think Chris Key was raising money for initially before he knew about Miracle League. And at the same time, the town of Clayton was raising money and ultimately built a special needs park for children as well, right?
Right. It was kind of all coming together at one time. So yes, the park was the same surface, the same smooth surface. We're so identical. It only makes sense for us to start working together. And that's when the Partnership to Build a Miracle was formed.
Okay, and so this is this 2014, 2015? I know, I mean...
8, 9, 10, I'm going to say it's probably about 2012.
2012, okay. Golly, I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. I saw that video like 4 times.
Yeah.
I mean, as Chris went around, you gave presentations. I mean, like it was really good, and and they weren't. I mean, this was not. I mean, when you listen to Chris Key talk about it and listen to you talk about it, it became very clear to me this was going to happen. It didn't matter how long it took.
Right.
It was going to happen.
No doubt. No doubt. No doubt.
And so this town of Smithfield gives you the land for the field, but they also give the land for the park too, which I guess they kind of run the park. It's part of their Parks and Rec, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
And so how long did it take y'all once y'all combined to go out and raise $1 million?
Well, that was one of the best parts that the Miracle League did, was working with Chris and the Partnership to Build a Miracle. We brought a lot of the enthusiasm and the desire to make this happen. Not that they didn't, but yes, they did. But what they had also was a lot of contacts with grants and stuff like that, because they had already been doing that.
Right.
And so that made it real simple for us. But yeah, we were fortunate enough. The Miracle League field and the park are now just across the street from one another. So kids can go right back and forth to either one of them. Town of Smithfield was great. It's a funny story, and I better not. I'm tempted to not tell it, but it's too good not to tell. So we went to a town meeting to get permission. We did our presentation of what we were going to do to build the field and everything. And so the town of Smithfield writes us a lease. We're going to lease you 2 acres to build the field on. Miracle League's responsible for managing it. It was separate from Parks and Rec, but it was on the Smithfield field. So they sent me a lease to sign, and the lease was for $1 a year. So basically, because they had to have something financial to make it legitimate, but they've never asked me for my dollar.
Yeah, I understand. It's same thing with the Greater Cleveland Athletic Association with the land behind the old Cleveland School.
Yep.
That 13 acres that we play sports on, and I was on that board.
Yep.
And I think it's $1 a year, and I don't know that the county's ever asked us for that dollar.
That's right.
As far as that's concerned. Well, and I know that Smithfield Mayor Andy Moore
Yes.
was a big proponent of this program, and he still is to this
Yes,
day. And that's great. And the Smithfield Parks and Rec, the guy who just retired, was big as well.
Yeah.
Trying to remember what his name was. Tim.
Well, no, he retired. Gary Johnson.
Gary Johnson.
Oh,
yeah. I'm thinking of his nickname.
I've got his phone number.
Right. I'm thinking of Gary Johnson's nickname. Koozie, right? Yeah, right? That's how I knew him.
Everybody knows
he was big on this. I mean, no bigger lover of children than Gary Johnson.
I tell you what, he has been instrumental in keeping this thing going. I've got him in my phone. I mean, and he knows when the phone rings, I'm asking for something. So
well, and he did so much. And I really, even though he's retired, I really should probably call him up because I mean, he helped start the Tar Heel Leagues, which is its own, which is its own all-star tournaments for softball and baseball for rec kids. It's not travel teams.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost $1 million. Right. My son was fortunate enough to play in some of those tournaments with kids all around the state, and him and that team with Tar Heel Leagues did a tremendous job. And it is so the not travel. And we did travel ball. And it was way better. What he did with those rec teams and the rec all-star teams was tremendous.
If it's a sports team through that park, through the Johnston County, it's got his name on it somewhere.
Well, even the fact that park got built and the fields behind it and the concession stand and the tennis courts. I mean, really, now they're going to put pickleball courts there. Yeah, so that was great. So back to the Miracle League. Golly, I'll talk to you all day long.
We can go
down tangents. So who are the players? What disabilities do they have? What disabilities can they not have to play Miracle?
Right. Well, we're open to any kid with a disability, obvious. And when I was doing my research, there at the time, and sure maybe more now, but there were roughly 3,000 kids in Johnston County that required extra help. They had special needs, they had other things, but the way the kids qualify, if your child has, I guess, a modified plan, EIPs, what the teachers call them, if there's any IEPs. Okay, I'm close. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's bad that I didn't know that. My wife's a special needs teacher. But if they qualify for that, if they have a doctor's note that basically explains the disability or whatever, they're eligible to play in the league. What we've seen a lot of is the kids in the wheelchairs love it because it gives them a chance to really go and move without any I mean, they just get out there and go wild. The kids in crutches, we've had a few of those kids in leg braces. They love it because they've got the help, and it's just fun to watch those kids get out there. We've seen a big increase in autism rates, which the entire country has. But those kids, I can't say enough about our volunteers. They handle those kids, they enjoy them, they interact with them. And the biggest smile I get, really and truly, not just the kids or the parents. The way our league is set up, when you take your child to a game, let's say they play in the regular leagues, in a rec league, you go and your kid goes to the coach, you sit in the bleachers and watch. But most parents with special needs kids, they're having to be right there with them the entire time. But when they come to the Miracle League, their kid gets paired up with a buddy. The parent goes and sits down on the bleachers and sits there and watches and gets to cheer. So those kids really appreciate it. The parents really appreciate it. And we've actually become a community. The parents start talking to each other. They're from different schools. So now they get to see other parents from other parts of the county. So now they start comparing notes and, it's really
sharing resources. Mainly.
Sharing resources.
No, absolutely.
That's the biggest thing.
Sharing resources.
I've heard of okay, you do that? Okay, great. I need to try that. So it's really been beneficial for everybody involved.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so do you charge players to play in this league?
Well, there is a charge right now. I say this is our 15th year. For 14 years, it was $25, but we have gone up for $40 per kid. But that basically buys your uniform and stuff during the season. But I made the parents a promise. I say, parents, I apologize for having to go up, but if you pay $40 now, you're going to pay both seasons. Where it was $25 for each season, now we're doing $40 and you play in both seasons. You play in one or two. So yeah, there is that small charge. We do have donors that regularly give money specifically slated for kids to play. Kids that can't afford it, that money is there to pay their tuition, I guess, or their registration fees.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. So, how many kids are in this league? I know. We're recording this at the end of November.
Right.
It probably will not run till February, when your spring season is going to be starting at the end of March of 2025. You've just finished your fall 2024 season. So, how many kids are involved?
I knew we were going to do this interview, so I actually went and looked. I went through my player list, and I think we've got right at 160 kids on our list. Now, during each season, we don't have that many, but spring season in 2025, I'm expecting probably 80 to 100 kids. Fall season is a little bit smaller. We just finished up the fall. We had 64 kids registered. So we're growing, and I do have a personal goal of getting 200 kids in the league. We have 4 teams right now. We have 2 younger teams that play each other and 2 older teams. My goal is to get to like 6 or 7 teams.
So what ages are eligible to play in the Miracle League?
Right now it's school age, 5 years old to 18 or 19, depending on graduation. We just tell every parent from kindergarten through high school.
Okay, I got you. And the games are on Saturday mornings, and the spring 25 season is going to start at the end of March.
End of March. Last week in March is usually when we start.
Okay, and then it's going to go through when?
End of school, usually that first or second weekend of June.
Okay, so about 10 weeks.
About 10 games, yeah. That's what we shoot for. There's a couple of holidays in there that we break for, but we try to get 10 games in the spring.
Do they keep score?
The kids do in their heads.
I'm just curious.
We don't have a scoreboard. We don't have a running scoreboard out there, but I can promise you. I promise the kids are keeping score.
They're keeping score. I got you. And does the kid need to be able to catch a ball or throw a ball to play in the Miracle League?
Absolutely not. They don't need baseball gloves. They don't need cleats. They don't need uniforms. They don't need their own bats. We provide every bit of that. I tell all the parents, I get that email every year. Does my kid need to bring anything? I'm like, a smile. Just bring a smile and ready to play. That's all we need.
Oh, man, that's great. So how do people get registered if they have a child who wants to play in the league?
Sure. We've got our website, Miracle League JC. We got creative there for Johnston County, miracleleaguejc.com. And on that website gives them all the information they need. There's 2 specific links on there, one to volunteer, one to register your kid to play. We're actually updating that website now. It'll go to a single registration place where volunteers and players can register at the same time. It signs you up for email and text notifications. So we're stepping up in the world just a little bit.
Yeah, and you need a lot of volunteers every Saturday because, I mean, each player gets a buddy, I think. And so, so if there's 10 players on the field, you need 10 players, you need 20. I mean, if it's 10 versus 10, you need 20 volunteers to play a game.
Well, right. If you just go back to what I said, we had 60 players in the spring. So that's 60 volunteers on a Saturday morning. So, yeah, it's a crowd of folks. But I don't know what it is about Johnston County, but the people here are ready to serve. We just have a great community spirit here. I've never had a problem with volunteers. I was just telling her earlier that when I first got started, I'd show up at the field Saturday mornings, just praying we had enough volunteers. But now we've got people signing up. We got people signing up a year in advance to make sure they had a date to be there. What's really good is I graduated from Campbell in 1992, not to age myself, but with that came a few connections with the athletic department. And 10 years ago, the baseball coach talked to me and said, actually, Campbell has a magazine that they send out every quarter, and I got a big write-up in that. So the baseball coach called me. He said, hey, we want to get involved. So for 10 years, Campbell University's baseball team has been coming out, but the news spread throughout the entire university. So now we have the baseball team, the basketball team, the softball team, lacrosse team. They all want to be a part of it. So we've got a group of volunteers. We really like businesses to volunteer. They bring their staff. We had Target from Goldsboro, brought about 20 volunteers, 20 of their employees out for a day. We've got quite a few companies around the county that sponsor, and churches, youth groups, and just baseball leagues, softball leagues, and a lot of high school kids. And I really appreciate the high school kids that come out, that take their time. These kids are 14 to 18 years old. They got plenty of other stuff to be doing, but they spend their Saturday mornings out there with these kids. And not only out of obligation, but they're having fun. I mean, they go
Right.
out there to have a good time, and the kids really respond to it.
No, it's great. And I know Campbell has been involved. Me and Campbell graduated from law school there. I get that magazine. I
Yep.
read it. Still involved with the law school in a
Right.
lot of ways. And I've seen the pictures of those players that have been out there. And some of those players that have gone there are now in the major leagues.
That's right.
Cedric Mullins, I think, came out there with y'all a few years ago. And I think he was there. I'm not sure, but I think he was. And now he plays for the Baltimore Orioles.
Well, I know.
And then they've got that pitcher that's going to be in the major leagues too.
Gosh, what's his name now? I feel bad.
Yeah, right. I know. So
and he just graduated like 2 years ago. He's playing with the Angels now.
Right.
So, but I know he was there specifically because we've got his autograph on a piece of paper. The coach looked at me and said, "He's going to be big time." So we went ahead and got his autograph.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, that's great. And I know Campbell's got a new baseball coach.
Yes,
and
I've met him.
You've met him.
He's awesome. He's a great guy. And he said he's the one that came out with him this fall. He said, "We'll be back next year."
Oh,
Save
that's
us a spot.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And yeah, a lot of great people at Campbell University Athletics, and just a great university. And I appreciate the education I got there. I know you appreciate the education you got there. I think you got an MBA from there, right? Yeah. So anyway, well, cool. So I guess the last question we'll ask you is the last question we ask everybody is, what do you love most about Johnston County?
I've mentioned it several times, and you just can't be a part of Johnston County and not recognize this community. We have all the big, what I call the big town, big city amenities, but we've still got cow pastures. We've still got farms. We've still got people that, church on Sunday, in the community all week long. There's still small town, big town amenities, small town mentality. We still love each other. We still want to work together. We still want to support each other. So I love it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And your website again?
MiracleLeagueJC.com.
MiracleLeagueJC.com. All right. If you want to get involved with Monty McLamb and the Miracle League and all the great things that his group is doing, please reach out to him. Sign up to volunteer. Be a sponsor. Go out. Just cheer. If you know any students that may benefit from playing in this league, definitely sign them up. They are not capped out. They want to serve as many disabled children as possible. And I can promise you, you will not go out there and not leave with the biggest smile on your face you will ever have as you watch those kids play the game and their smiles. It is truly what is right about Johnston County and what really is right about America in a lot of ways. Anyway, I would like to remind you to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it. Also tag it in your Instagram stories, Best of Johnston County Podcast. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
Play ball.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.